On or off?
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is November 19th, Wednesday, and we are kicking off our third governance series session. And the session is about creating synergy between the superintendent and the president. We have a very honored guests this evening, Katie Kohler from the Chicago Park Elementary School District, and she is the superintendent president, and Cynthia McCoy, the board president of Chicago Park. We're going to get started in just a minute. We're going to allow folks to join and get comfortable. These sessions, we have two parts to it. We'll first have the portion related to the synergy, and then following that, we have Randy Erickson from the Boehmer law firm that will be providing us, the McDougal law firm that will be providing us a component of our ethics training that we're doing at every session. If you attend all sessions or listen to the recordings of all sessions, you will receive a certificate that certifies that you've complied with the 2-hour ethics training that is required of board members every 2 years. And so SSDA will be providing that certificate upon completion. It is somewhat on your honor to participate in all the sessions. If you got to listen to the ones that you miss, we do have an attendance record of you attending for those that are on our webinar. So welcome this evening. This is our third session of our governance series, and we're going to kick it off this evening with the importance of synergy between the relationship between the superintendent and the board president. We are very fortunate to have one of our board members, SSDA board member, Katie Kohler. She's the superintendent principal of Chicago Park Elementary School District in the Grass Valley area of California. She is a native of Grass Valley and brings a deep-rooted rural background, including participation in 4-H, to her leadership of a small community-oriented K-8 school district. Under her leadership, the school has grown its hands-on experiential learning opportunities. And for example, they have a half-acre farm that I was fortunate to have been able to visit. And it's a garden program that integrates agriculture, science, and food systems education. Katie, welcome. Thank you not only for what you do as a board member, but for honoring us with your experience and your leadership at the Chicago Park. I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce your board president, Cynthia McCoy. Cynthia, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Katie, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Yuri. I am so lucky to work with Cynthia McCoy, trustee Cynthia McCoy. She has a very unique history because she went to Chicago Park School. So all the way through all of her grade school was at Chicago Park. So she really brings a unique aspect to the board, really the history and also just the love of the school. She's extremely pro-kid. She is very, very dedicated to the staff to make sure they're happy, that they're getting everything they need. And then something that I love that we have in common is we both are huge supporter of ag education. And so we really get to brainstorm and really look at creative ways to get what we think is important, because we both grew up with it, to our kiddos. So I love that. So welcome, Trustee McCoy. How are you? I'm just gonna call her Cynthia for the night.
Doing well. You can call me Cynthia. You can call me Cynthia. Katie and I have known each other for a long time.
Yeah. We've known each other since, we're young.
Yeah.
That's great.
Pre-marriage, pre-babies, pre-all of it.
So it makes it really nice. We're just growing in a small community. That's one thing we love, is that you end up working with kids that you grew up with their parents, which is really cool for our little town. So
yeah.
So we're going to jump in. If you guys have any questions, just pop them in and we will be happy to answer them. We've been working together on the board for many, many years. Cynthia is my second board president. I've been very lucky to have two fantastic board presidents that have been very supportive. And so I'm going to go through kind of what Cynthia and I have found kind of as the best recipe to really work for us. It's been really successful for us to have that synergy with running our district. So we'll jump in. When do you have our PowerPoint?
I do not.
Oh. Uh-oh.
I will get it up for you. Give me just a second.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. I got it. I got it. It's coming. Here we go. Can we see that?
Yep, we can. Thank you so much. Thank you, Yuri. All right, so transparency. So we can slide down. All right. So Cynthia and I will just pop back and forth, just telling, we kind of like to tell stories and like to just give examples of what we've been doing. So one thing that's really nice is that Cynthia, I feel, does a really good job with the board members, making sure they stay in their lane as well as I stay in my lane. So really looking at the governance versus management. They are making the ones making, the decisions. They aren't telling me how to do my job, which I really appreciate. I know Cynthia has had, there's been a couple of times there's had been conversations or, getting people back on track with that. And she does a really good job just making sure that, when we have board meetings or those things, making sure everyone is staying in that lane. Cynthia, do you want to talk about the next bullet point?
Oh, yeah. So what we try to do is we definitely want all of our board members to be prepared when they come to the meeting. And so, because a lot of times what will happen is we're all busy. We all have busy lives, and they will come in and try to read, the BPs and the ARs. And so I definitely try to encourage them to have all that information, reviewed so that they come prepared to the meeting. And so we can get through it as efficiently as possible. And, we listen to Katie, like she'll tell us what she's thinking, and we usually agree with her for the most part because she hasn't led us astray here. We've gone pretty, have a good history here with Katie. Like we haven't had a lot of issues. So we definitely support Katie in whatever she recommends. There's sometimes where things can be a little bit dicey. Like one of my first ones was during COVID. That one was interesting. We had one of those meetings where we had to discuss, dropping the masks before the mandate, and it can get a little heated, but I feel like the whole board, with Katie's guidance and her input, like we definitely made what we felt was the best decision for the kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's one thing that I think we're the entire board really is really strong at, and that's with Cynthia's leadership, is really making decisions that are based around kids, not anything else. It's a kid focused. And then I really try to respect that the board sets direction, and it's my job to implement those choices. Agree or disagree, they are my bosses, and it's their if they are choosing a direction, I very much respect that and move forward with that. And then I think this is something that Cynthia's done really well with. When the vote is over, it's one voice. So Cynthia is very active in the community, so you get approached by parents quite often about things.
I do.
And so do you want to share how you kind of handle those? Because they come at you quite a bit.
They do come at me quite a bit, especially when I have 3 children at the school. And so I'm familiar with a lot of people. And I went to the school, like Katie said, my nephews, nieces went to Chicago Park. So I've been there for a really long time. And so I've known a lot of the families over the years. And so they do come and they will voice their opinions and their concerns. And I just listen to them. I don't really give them my opinion on where I stand, because you don't want that getting out in the community. If they have a concern with something that Katie's done, I listen to them, and I won't say, Katie's in the wrong. Katie shouldn't have said that. Katie shouldn't have done that. I just listen to them, and then Katie and I will have a conversation and figure out the best way to handle whatever situation is being brought to my attention.
Also surprises. So that's one thing, being in a very small community. Um, our my board hears about things quickly, really quickly. So I really try my best to make sure they get information instantly. An example is I unfortunately had a student that was in an abusive home, and he broke out of the home and ran to the school. And so I had to secure the school and his location and call authorities and CPS to come. And but there was a school play going on in the evening. And so I made sure to instantly let my board know. I made a phone call to every single board member to tell them the situation, saying we're doing this, and they're like, okay. And I was like, I'm going to the hospital with the child, and they really had my back. And because the second, because people see things, the phone calls started coming in. And so really making sure they know so they're prepared, as well as me. If they hear something that's going to happen, like, oh, we hear, this person's upset about, something being cut, or, priorities, they make sure to call me and say, hey, Katie, this parent's a little upset. They might come to board meeting. So it's just, we're ready to support them. How big is our school? We are very interesting. We are pretty much I treat it like a one school district. We're on one site. We're half charter and half public school. On one side, I'm the superintendent and principal, and we have 170 students total for our whole district. So we're pretty tiny, which is,
It's not much. It's about the same size as when I was there. It didn't grow a whole lot.
We dropped a little bit during COVID, but we've really brought it back up. We've gained over 20 students back, which has been really nice. Good question. All right. And then this is something Cynthia has kind of, I guess it's kind of interesting. You've put your role in, like, been very firm with some of the board members I know, and just making sure roles, that people know where their roles are, and making sure it's smooth. So I think by doing that, especially when board meetings are ran, Cynthia is very good with saying, like, okay, we need to move on. It's time to vote. Like those kind of things, to really guiding that meeting to make sure it's really focused in and not getting sidetracked. And so that really does build trust with the community, because they have respect on how it is ran. We've actually invested quite a bit just on image. It sounds weird, but image of our board, because we have been trying to get our community to start coming more to our board meetings. That's actually been a struggle of ours, is to get community members at our board meetings. And so we invested in Chromebooks, so they look professional, portfolios that say this Chicago Park logo, but just that image portion, just to also build, like, so the community knows, oh, this is a professional meeting. It is handled this way. We're ready for the next slide. And keep asking questions, so we're happy to help. All right, transparency. So we're really good about posting agendas, but this is something, Cynthia, you do quite well, bringing up Brown Act during meetings, because we do have some members that's their first time at a meeting. What are you sure? You do it really well. You're very polite, but very firm.
I'm very polite. Well, I have to, one of the funniest things that somebody asked the kids at school, like, what does your mom do for work? And they said, she gets paid to boss people around. And so I'm very comfortable with giving direction and, like, redirecting people when they kind of go off topic, or I'll have people having, like, side conversations on the side during the board meeting, and I have to, like, tell them, hey, we're over here. This is what we need. Let's move on. You can't keep having your side conversation. If there's something you want to discuss, you got to bring it back, ask that it gets put on the agenda. We can't have these conversations going on the side over here. So I have no problem redirecting people when I see them kind of going off topic.
Well, and we also have the tendency, which is that you do a good job with this one too, just having to remind the public that this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. Because our community will come and be like, well, wait, I want to talk more about that. I want my opinion in here. And so she's been, again, respectfully firm, saying, this is a meeting in public.
Yes. So. Remind them, you can talk to us. We can't talk back to you and engage with you. So, and
Mhm.
they've all handled it pretty well. Again, the only time we've ever had a real issue with that was during COVID, but that's
Yeah.
to be expected when it was a little heated during those times.
Yeah. Also, I think we do, the school does a really good job with transparency with decision making is the reports are fully, so this is on me and my team, is we make sure that everyone is getting all the reports ahead of time and
Hmm.
they're thorough, complete reports. That way the board has it, the community has, a chance to look at it and giving everyone an opportunity to have that voice. And so there isn't any other questions about that. And even with the budget, any kind of updates, there are reports always that are fully done. Um, Also, I this is something that's nice that I will do as well as our board. They'll share the why behind decision making. So Cynthia, you've kind of explained that quite a bit with community saying like, hey, this is the purpose of like us doing this, it's or even like this is a new law. I think you had to do that last meeting. We don't really have a choice.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
certain things that come up where, certain board members don't agree with it based on their political opinions and whatnot. And there's certain, I just had to say, unfortunately, we don't have a way around this. We can add to this. We cannot remove from what the federal government is telling us we have to have in our policies. And
Yeah.
that usually tends to calm them down a little bit and we can proceed. And we have discussions about things, but if we can't change it, then we don't want to spend, a huge amount of time on it just to have a discussion that's going to go in circles because people aren't going to agree with, not everyone's going to agree with what the federal government is telling us we have to do in our schools.
Yeah. And that's also what just like explaining that piece is really making so some things are really complex and not the general public might not truly understand that. And also acronyms, not always the general public doesn't really
Mhm.
understand those. And so really making sure that we explain that. So Cynthia will take that, or Cynthia will sometimes say, Katie, can you please explain what that means or the impact that would have on our student population? And so that's been really nice, kind of us bouncing off each other. But I do love that Cynthia will like point to me like, Katie, please go in more detail about that. And that gives me the opportunity to do that. And then I like to communicate to all my board members. They get weekly emails from me on Fridays. That's the day we always send them. And so I like to include data. I sometimes will make charts and send that to them, especially with like our CASP data coming out. They got a lot of data for me about that because we chose to get new ELA and math curriculum this year, last year. So we were really looking at that data piece, like how did that work? Because we had to look at like a lot of budgeting things and make sure it worked out. So those are things that's really nice, is just including that. So then they have that, then they can do, they can, really look at the process and look at, past year's data with that as well. I'm looking at, we have a comment. Oh yes, I absolutely agree with you that yes, the state government also is throwing all new laws at us as well that
Yeah,
we
it's not
got
just the
today.
federal government, the state as well.
And we have had that. Our community is really mixed. I would say it's very interesting because it's we either have very liberal or very conservative. We don't have many in between. So it's been really dicey on those. So it's been kind of made it easy on the board saying this is a new law. Like this is what we need to do because we're a public school. But that's been kind of an interesting thing to kind of maneuver, Cynthia. Don't you think that political divide with it?
Yeah, but everything's always in our packets. Everything's always really detailed on where they can find the information, where they have like everything, like the exact numbers for the BP's ARs, everything, like and the citations of where it came from. Like that's all in there, so
Yeah.
they can dive into it, do a little light reading at nighttime if they want
Yeah.
to.
So we always include with our BPs and ours all the laws. We actually put that, we
Mhm.
include that on the end of the BP and AR. So that's been nice. Yeah. All right. You're ready for the next one?
Absolutely. We had a question, Katie, and
Oh,
you
yes.
can answer that as part of this is good places for board members to receive training. I mentioned the SSDA conference that's coming up in March, and also CSBA is a great place. This year, their conference is next week. No, I mean, in 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
here in Sacramento. It's the first week of December in Sacramento. So those are two great places to get board member training. And as I mentioned, this session is these sessions that we're doing once a month is a great place also to get training.
Yeah. I also, as a superintendent, will do onboarding with my new board members. I just did that. We actually just got a new board member, so I spent a couple hours with her and just went over. I just have a packet that I went over, just kind of expectations and stuff. And then also, we've leaned on our county office because there's a lot of districts in Nevada County, and so they will put on board trainings after each election. We always have a training that we do. And it's nice because they have so many that come that we can also bring in an attorney as well to do some training on Brown Act and things. So that's been a nice one. So those are two more resources. Yeah. All right. I feel like this is some things that we do well that actually makes, I think, the relationship really just nice and easy. Cynthia and I have a really easygoing relationship. Like it's just very natural. I feel like I can share anything with Cynthia and it's going to be great. I hope Cynthia feels that way.
No, I do. I totally do. I know that
Yeah,
anytime something comes up, I can reach out to you and that we're going to have like a constructive conversation about it and come up with a
yeah,
solution and, try to figure out what's the best course of action to
yeah.
remedy whatever situation gets thrown at us.
So one thing we do, we connect on the phone that works for us, and it's usually in the evening when Cynthia's off of work and I'm off of work, just so we don't have distractions. So that's been really helpful. We probably talk on the phone at least once a week.
Yeah,
So it's quite a
at
lot.
least. At
Yeah,
least.
at least we talk on the phone all the time. Sometimes more. I mean, this week we've talked quite a bit, but we have kind of a dicey thing happening on at the school right now. We have a parent that's quite upset um, for a consequence their child got, and so we've been, talking through that quite a bit. But we at least do weekly check-ins, even if it's going great. Just be like, hey, this is happening. So she knows what's happening. She can tell me if she's heard anything. It just makes it just really smooth. And then also, if there are any really hot topics, for instance, today, I have called every single one of my board members. And so if there are hot topics happening, and because we're having a issue with, we have a pretty upset parent right now. Um, and so I will actually call my board members. That's kind of how I like to handle it. And so we have quick conversations on the phone. I can answer questions for them. And that's just, it makes it easy if we have, or if I have a staffing issues, like if something, happens drastically, I can give them a call, say, hey, this is happening. I'm problem solving it. I'm doing this. So they at least know what my plan is. And then they'll even call me if they're like, hey, Katie, this, community room, like this is happening in the community. Like, what do you know? Um, our school is the hub of the community. Everyone uses it. So like we actually had a fire a couple years ago that went very close to our school. And that was like, that's where the firefighters hung out. They actually slept in our gym. When we have community events, like our fire stations doing trainings, like for the community, they use our gym. It's the only the next place is probably 20 minutes away. So it's the spot that the community really leans on. There isn't a park. The closest park is also about, 20 minutes. So everyone uses it on the weekend to play. So it's because it's such a big hub, things that happen in the community, are big deals to us. Um, so this is an interesting thing, and it also is probably our board dynamic. So when we have messaging going out, I had last year, and I work in our district doesn't have much action. I just want to be honest. Like it's a pretty mellow district. We had a threat that was sent to us, but we were pretty sure it was not, and it was a false threat, and they ended up finding out it was. So I wanted to send out messaging to our families about that. So with that situation, I notified Cynthia, but what we did with looking over the draft to make sure it was good, I actually sent it to another board member who's a sheriff for our county. So we really try to lean on. So even though I tell Cynthia, we lean on other board members with their skills and their background just to make sure
Mhm.
the messaging that's going out, it's vetted. We're all for it. We are okay with the messaging. And so I think that's been really nice, just kind of like really using their resources. During COVID, I was lucky enough to have a doctor on the board. So that was nice with those messaging. I could really lean on her because I am not a doctor. We were thrown into doing medical stuff, and I was like, I have no clue. I worked in the classroom for all these years. So it was nice to kind of use those resources. So I think that's been really nice to have a board full of different knowledge and to really like glean off them. Oh, I looked at the time. Sorry, Yuri, I might go over. We'll try to wrap it up. I'm sorry.
No, you keep going. You got time.
Okay. And then best practices. Just the no surprise rule. Like we're not like we're notifying each other. No one on the board has ever surprised anyone, I don't think. Just because we have
I don't
kind of
think
that,
so.
yeah, we have that rule, and it's like kind of a sacred rule with us that you have each other's back and yeah, confidential and there's no surprises. It's kind of like I feel like almost turned into like an oath with us. We're a team. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would really recommend a structured memo system or just updates. So I do a weekly email. They know every Friday they're getting it. If they're not going to get it on the next Friday, I always let them know. So for instance, next week, I always take off Thanksgiving. I have this weird thing I do. I go to Campsgiving. It's kind of silly, but the board knows it. And so this week on my Friday update, I'm just gonna say, hey, just a reminder, you will not get one from me next week. So they know every Friday they're getting an email from me by a certain time. I usually do it by like 3:30. They have their email and they know every time they're going to get that. So that's, they check their email throughout, the week, but they know that's when Katie is giving our updates of the week. And I give them little kudos like what's happened in different grades, anything that I want them to know. This is a weird thing. I share my board updates with my executive assistant, with the person that our CBO, and I send it to my lead teacher. So they all and my special ed director. So they all get it as well of what's happening. So it kind of gives a breakdown of what I've done for the week as well as what's been happening. I don't go into crazy nitty gritties. I just bullet point it and make it kind of easy because they don't want to read every single thing I do every day, but it makes it really nice. Oh, communication between board members. I'm kind of a rarity. All my board members have kids at my school. So they're on campus daily. I actually ran into, I think, 3 board members today on campus. So I see them quite often. So I'm kind of blessed to have that because I get to see them and I get to talk to them about what's going on. So I communicate every week to them. So they get weeklies. And then Cynthia, you reach out to them at certain times just for like if there's something happening
Yeah.
and you and I will talk about who's calling when, but you've called each board member or I've done it as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
But Cynthia, you don't talk to the board member. You don't send anything out to board members. It's just me.
No.
Yeah.
No. Only if there's something that has to go out to them, but you're usually part of it too. So yeah. No.
Yeah. And then keeping personal opinions separate from the board role. So that's been something we've really pushed on our board is like, we're here for kids. Like that's our number one thing. We're doing this for kids. It's not we don't put politics into it or anything. It's just always kid focused. What's best for kids.
Yeah.
All right, we're ready for the next slide. So, this is something I actually love that we did at our last board retreat. So, we're not a wealthy district. So when I say board retreat, I feel like I'm tricking my board members. They got to go to the school and I got them dinner. That was our board retreat.
We're not going to Tahoe or anything like that.
No.
Napa, nothing like that. We're going to our normal meeting place.
But you get dinner. So
We do get dinner. We do get dinner.
That's a treat. So this year, I loved that we decided to get to know each other a little better because we know each other like just normal, like know each other. But we did this fun. Each person did a slide, and every person that attends the board meeting. So like our CBO, our executive assistant, our special ed director, those people did a slide as well. And so you had pictures of your family on it, and then you put like random facts about yourself. And the things that we learned about each other was hilarious. It was great. And it was really fun just to get to know each other in a different way. I loved it. and I feel like it really built relationships. Like I really do. I think it helps with relationships. And we had a great relationship before everyone did, but I think it just took it to the next level.
I
Uh,
agree. I agree. I think it was a really good exercise and it gave
mhm.
everybody opportunity to be like, oh, wow, okay. So I didn't know that they were into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
learn
Like we
different
found out
things about facts about people.
one of our board members like used to work at New York Fashion Week. We're like, what? Like it was
Yeah.
so cool. Just
No
those kind
clue.
of things.
No clue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it didn't take that long to do. It took maybe 10 minutes
Yeah.
for us to do it. It was really easy. So we really are, and this is where Cynthia is really good about making sure respect, professional conduct, all those things. We haven't had any issues, but if there was one, I know, Cynthia, I know you would have a conversation. I know
Yeah.
that. Um, so this is one that I think I would love for you to touch on, Cindy, because I think you do a really good job about supporting me publicly, and then you and I having conversations privately.
Yes. Yes. So over the years, there's like she mentioned that we have the issue right now with the family who's upset and that they didn't appreciate the consequences that were handed down to their child.
Mhm.
And I've had that type of stuff brought to my attention over the years. And again, I just listen to the parents and I don't give my personal opinion on how I think it should have been handled, whether or not I feel we were too harsh or we were too lenient. I just listen to the parent and then I will talk to Katie and again try to figure out like what can we do going forward if we handled it incorrectly or which I haven't really run into that with Katie where I feel like I don't agree with a decision that she's made. Um, I feel Katie's very fair and very level headed when she does make a disciplinary decision with a student. And so I've never had to go against whatever decision she's made. And again, like in the community, I just listen and I do not give my opinion on whether or not I feel she handled it correctly or not.
Katie, we got a couple questions in the chat, in the Q and A. If I'm just gonna ask you, you can build them in wherever you want. We all want transparency. We have issues with lawsuits and the board is being accused of spending too much money on attorneys, but lawsuits are using a lot of money. And these are confidential issues either involving students or staff. Do you have any issues like this and how do you handle complaints from citizens? How does the board and superintendent handle this together?
Mhm.
And then
We're
we have a
actually
follow-up question on how do you manage the relationship with teachers and the teachers union?
Oh, those are good questions. The we actually had one this year. We had a formal complaint, and so we have quite a bit of legal fees. I code it as legal fees, and of course you can't put those, details in it, but I do put a code on it, and it might be I wonder if it's coded as I don't know exactly. Yuri, you might be better. I don't know exactly how it's coded on it because but I don't put the detail on it. We put legal and we have a description for it. And I want to maybe say it's something simple as complaint or something like that. But I do make it so that people, because I'm very big on the transparency, how it's labeled. And so we do break it down. Yuri, do you have something to add
Yeah,
with that?
it goes into the professional services
That's what,
in the
yeah.
5,000s. And you can code it as legal fees and you can put a generic description. And most times in
Yeah.
small communities, people know what it is.
Yeah. So we usually do that because we do want to be transparent with that. We this year, especially our legal fees have been a little more up. We've had some special ed situations as well, and just getting the advice from legal counsel. Um, and then for I have a very weird situation with the teachers union. So our teachers are very, very happy people. And I feel bad sharing this. We had to talk them into a raise. So it's a very weird situation, but we were actually one of the lowest paid districts. So that was actually a goal of the board was to make sure we were paying competitively because we have some really great people and we don't want them to leave. And so we've been really aggressive with it, but we have a really great relationship. I meet with my lead teacher, and he meets with the teacher. Sometimes they invite me and say, "Can you meet with us and have a conversation?" But our CBO, we use our county as our CBO services. So she's really great about looking at what we can afford. Um, and shares with the board, this is what I think you guys should be able to, afford and feel good. And the teachers feel really confident with that too. So it's been a very easy process for us. Um, and I know that is not the norm. We've been very lucky. I have spent a lot of time when I first went there, it wasn't as such a healthy relationship. And so what I did, there was a lot of anger, and they actually had CTA at the table. And so what I really worked going forward, I luckily didn't bring CTA my first year, but implemented teacher tales. So every month that they would come in, the teachers, I invited them. I said, if you want me to share, that's fine too, no pressure. And so they got to share what they were doing in the classroom. And I really, really focused on board relationships with the teachers. I've invited board members to tour the classrooms. I really, they're very good, but I do, when they come, I said, make sure, you thank them for what they do. And our board is very good about thanking the teachers and actually all staff for what they do. They really feel appreciated. And so that's been really nice to have that. But that's kind of how I've handled that. So oh, so the next one is speaking respectfully. That kind of goes with that. Like our trustees are really good about thanking the staff and students. I think it's kind of cute. Something we do if a student wins county or wins state level for awards, like we're big in handwriting contests. It's something we do, and we always have state winners. And so our board actually recognizes the students at our board meetings, which I really love. So they get recognized in our school-wide assemblies for winning for the school, but for state level. And we actually had a student with art won a regional contest. And so that was recognized at our board meetings. So it's nice because then the board can really, I feel like it fills your guys' bucket too, Cynthia, because like you're
Yeah.
sometimes it's not that fun, something stuff you always do. And like the kids stuff, you're like, this is what I'm doing. This is so cool,
Yeah. No, I like it when they come in and then they get to kind of see what it is that we do, and we get to, appreciate them and recognize them for their hard work, and, because they're obviously they are representing the school, and so that goes a long ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you kind of addressed the other one, the importance of appropriate behavior and decorum during meetings. Um, I've been, because I like to visit other board meetings. I actually have taken a couple of our board members to other board meetings. I did one just 2 months ago. I took one of our board members to another board meeting. Um, but really like looking at that, like what we want, the image we want to represent. We are we're in an interesting situation. Only I think like 50, 60 kids are actually live in our district so we get over 100 kids from other districts that choose to transfer to our district. So we really have to play like the ADA game. Like the school needs to look nice. We need to be on our game. Like the board needs to present themselves a certain way because if we don't, people will leave. Like, because they are driving quite a ways. We have families that drive over half an hour to bring their kids to our school. So it's a lot of pressure on every member of the staff as well as the board to make sure they are acting appropriately. Um, and then hallway conversations. You've this is I sometimes call Cynthia Madam President because she's had to get on some of the board members for that, for like conversations happening. And you do it really respectfully, but yeah, they don't want to cross you. How you do it. So, and then maintaining confidentiality. We actually had I had a pretty bad situation with actually the student I shared earlier that was injured. Um, when I called my board members to tell them I was going to the hospital with the child, one of our board members actually called the dad and said, Katie is taking your child to the hospital, and then gave my phone number to the dad. And so that was pretty rough to be in the waiting room and get a phone call from the dad saying, you have my kid, you've reported me. And it was really intense. And Cynthia, you were part of the board when that happened.
I was a part of the board, and Katie called, made the call and told me what was going on, and stressed the that how crucial it was that this remained confidential, and that we not talk about it. I mean, my kids were in the car, I think, when Katie called, and I had to like turn the volume way down on my phone because I didn't want them to overhear the conversation. It is a pretty small, it is a very small school. And so just with the little bit that they could have heard, they would have been able to put two and two together as to who it was that she was talking about. We did not, the rest of the board did not support the other board member notifying the dad of that. And I think he felt that, even without us verbalizing that to him. We brought a sheriff's deputy in to come and, express what could have happened, like had that dad gone to the hospital, and like what could have happened to Katie. So I thought that was really helpful when we did do a closed session with the sheriff's deputy, who's now on the board member, who's now one of the board members, to express that. And even then, it was interesting that the parent didn't still understand the severity of what he could have caused by making that call to the student's parent, but the rest of us did. And that board member did resign shortly after. So, yeah.
So I think that's where, I mean, that's the biggest thing is the board members, like I have 5 board members and I'm their only employee. So it's like I feel so good that I know they have my back. And that was one thing that I really felt that support, that they really truly cared about the safety of me, the safety of the child. And they got that board member to resign because they knew it was not a good fit. So it just is the peace of mind. So just to make sure, like, even though I am their only employee, but still it's important because I need to have a healthy mindset to run the organization. All right, next slide. So handling hot topics and crisis communication. So I have a really great relationship with Cynthia. I had a really great relationship with my last board president. So I probably going to be honest, I'm probably an over communicator. I very transparent. I want like my staff to know what's going on. Everyone to know, that my board know what goes on. I just don't want them to ever have doubts or ever question what I'm doing. And so I loop in Cynthia quite often with issues, not with like the day-to-day operation, but like just with any extra little things, just because it is such a small community, I really do. Um,
And I
during,
will say it's good and bad. It's not always bad when she
yeah,
loops me in on things. It's not always bad.
yeah, yeah. And then you do a nice job. Why don't you, because we did have a situation where you kind of took the lead about a crisis and communicated. If you want to talk about
Yeah,
just
it didn't.
communication style.
I've only been on the board for 4 years, and so I know I've learned a lot over the course of the last 4 years, but I'm still learning. And there was something that I didn't understand, and it wasn't making sense to me. So I reached out to the county superintendent, and he gave me guidance, and then he helped me try to navigate the situation that we were dealing with, and the information that we were both being given still did not make sense. And so we just escalated it further, and my gut was right. The information that we were being given was incorrect. And then there was a whole mess that we had to clean up after that. But I'm not somebody, if something doesn't sit well with me and it just doesn't make sense, regardless of how they try to explain it to me, I will definitely ask questions. And it might be annoying to some that I continue to ask questions, but if it doesn't feel right, then I'm going to just try to get the right answer and go from there.
Yeah. And Cynthia does a good job. Like if she needs to do calls, she'll contact each board member and be there for them with those things as well. Yeah, it's a rare thing, but it does happen. And then unified messaging, we're just really, really making sure that as a whole, I actually do it board and staff, that our message is all the same that we're giving to our families, to the community. We really try to have that united front with that. Social media, I don't post anything political. I don't go there. I feel like the role is to run a school district, and so I do have Facebook, I have Instagram, personal accounts, and I post things of my children. I just don't go there. I keep it very, very just very straight and narrow. Process for public public comment issues or complaints. So when I receive a complaint for the district, if I get a formal complaint, I do notify the board that we've received a formal complaint. And I then contact the attorney and I work with the attorney on the process. And then I will give them updates as I find out more information on it. The public comments and complaints at a board meeting. Cynthia, what do you say? You're actually very good about it.
Same thing. Like I said earlier, they make their comments, their suggestions, or, share their opinions or whatever. And we listen to them and we don't engage with them. If it's something that we feel the board needs to discuss, we will ask that it be put on the following month's agenda. And then that community member who raised the concern or the issue is also notified at that point that it will be on the following month's agenda if they want to come back to that meeting and listen to what the board decides.
And some things too, you've even turned to me and said, and you'll, instead of talking to them, you'll say, Katie, in a situation like blah, 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 how would you handle that kind of thing? And I would share like this,
Yeah.
if it's a simple one, we can just shut down right then and there.
Yes.
Good question, Alexa. Thank you. And then your social media, you do the kind of the same, Cynthia, because we're friends on Facebook, that you just post family pictures. You don't do anything political, none of that. It just you stay out of that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, anybody can find anything they want about you on your social media one way or another. Even if your account's private, you might have mutual friends with somebody who can, screenshot something and send it to this person who may have a difference of opinion with you. So I just try to keep it just family oriented.
Yeah. And then with public comments, we kind of touched on that. And then just staying calm. There's again, like COVID was very emotionally charged. We terminated a teacher. So we're so small that we can't non-reelect teachers. And so those are always very emotional if you are going to terminate and they choose to have hearings and all those pieces. And so just really staying calm as a board as well as a superintendent during those, because people have a lot of emotions with that, is something that's been really, really useful. And I think that kind of wraps it up. I went way over. I'm so sorry, Yuri. I'm a talker. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Cynthia. Great presentation. Lots of great information. We got a couple questions. Katie, the handwriting contest, which one is that?
It's the Xander Blozen one you can do. It's
Xander
totally
Blozen.
free. Yeah, it's great. And they actually send these huge medallions that the kids get. It's pretty amazing. And then if you have a local garden club, they do an amazing competition. This year, I think ours was Woody the Owl. And it's really cute. They sponsor and they actually were bringing an owl to our school. And then we had a student that won region. So that's out of, I think, California, Washington, and Oregon was the region. And so we went, if you win our, the county goes to state and then to region. But there's some really great ones that, aren't the norm that are free.
Fantastic. We have a couple more questions. How do you maintain confidentiality if you're sharing your Friday board updates with other personnel? It's a good question.
I don't put anything that's confidential in it. The confidential things I send to my board. If I have the policy, I'm okay with anyone reading my emails. That's kind of my policy with it. If I send it out to my teachers, I'm okay anything getting out there. So that's always been my thing. I do the calls to them. I sometimes will send text to each one of the board members. Like if we're doing something cute, like, oh my gosh, look at this amazing thing at the farm. I send pictures like that. But that's, again, I don't care if people see that. But with anything confidential, I do phone. That way it keeps it confidential.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Cynthia. There's one more question in the chat, but we're gonna punt that to Randy because it's kind of a little bit of a legal question. So thanks for joining us. I'm very grateful that you guys would share your experience and knowledge. And it does appear that you guys have a fabulous relationship, supportive, and working, the idea of you're working in a direction, you understand your vision, your mission, you're about doing things for kids, and how do you support each other to get things done? We do face rocky periods of time with a variety of issues, whether complaints, lawsuits, and having that cohesion and that understanding that you're headed in a direction. Clearly, you two have developed that synergy. So thank you for sharing that with us. So I'm going to hand it off. Randy Erickson is going to be joining us here. He's on. Randy, thank you for doing this. You're providing, Randy is with the law firm of McDougal, Boehmer, Foley, Lyon, Mitchell, and Erickson. I want to just call it the Erickson Law Firm. Are you okay with that, me doing that, Randy? Because it's such a long name. But let me tell you that Randy, who's a principal, who's been practicing for over 30 years with his firm, experienced education lawyer. And what I absolutely love about you is your compassion and your service to small school districts. Obviously, that's what we do here at SSDA, but your program's designed to provide that legal support at a low cost, whether it's, just the phone advice that oftentimes we need to avoid the problems. And so I'm very grateful that you do that. And not only that, that you've donated your time and service here to get our board members that 2 hours of training. So if they participate over the course of the 6 sessions, and they listen to them. If they miss them, they can listen to them afterwards. But we are issuing a certificate of compliance with the FPPC 2-hour requirement. So Randy, because we're a little short on time, I'm going to hand it off to you and let you take your section of the presentation for this evening.
Sure, thank you. And I did see there is a question in the chat, and the question was, how do you stay in compliance with the Brown Act? And I believe it was if I'm correct, it was the superintendent who would be calling up the board members, right?
Right, either the superintendent or let's say the board president is the one making the phone calls. How do you avoid some of the issues with serial meetings and things like that, right?
Well, a serial meeting only applies to elected officials. So the Brown Act requirements only apply to elected officials. So there's the superintendent specifically could call different board members and poll the board on each board member on, let them know the circumstances, let them get their take on it. What they can't do is let the board members know what other board members say, right? So I can call board member 1 and say, here's the issue, here's how I'm thinking of handling it. Will you support that? You can call board member 2. Here's the issue, here's how I'm going to do it. Will you support that? You can call board member 3. Same thing. The one thing you can't do is say, I just talked to board member X and they said this, and then I talked to board member Y and they said that. That's where you start getting into the serial meeting with this. But a superintendent certainly has the ability to contact other board members and get their take on it. Board president's a little bit different because the board president is an elected official. That's where you could get into some issues with there being a serial meeting.
And Randy, just a quick on that, there are some limited situations and some limited information that can be communicated by a board president, for instance, calling meetings or addressing items that need to be placed on the agenda, as long as they're not communicating substantive information or votes. Is that correct? I just want for clarification.
Right, correct.
Fantastic. Thank you, Randy. We'll let you take off with the rest of your presentation.
No problem. Let me get to the right page. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for joining. If you haven't been attending, I'm Randy Erickson. I'm an attorney. I'm with McDougal, Boehmer, Foley, Mitchell, Lyon, Mitchell, and Erickson. I've been an attorney since 1992, so however many years ago that was. It's a little easier. I've been doing schools and colleges since 2000, so coming up on 26 years. So what this is the third part of the ethics training. Local officials are required to receive at least 2 hours of ethics training every 2 years under the government code, and this applies to both elected and appointed officials if they get payment for their services. So part of we're doing is a series that will meet those requirements if you attend or listen to all of the training. And at the end of it, we can get you a proof of participation, which will indicate that the training was 2 hours long. What we're going to talk about today, this session is going to be what are the laws relating to personal financial gain, and we started getting into that at the last time. But this is what the laws require as far as there being personal gain for officials who are employed by public agencies, and particularly for school districts. So generally, a public official cannot participate in a determination if the determination will have a financial impact on a for-profit business where the public official works. A public official also can't be in a management position at a for-profit business, as it helps. It then raises questions about the public official's loyalty and whether that's to the business or to the entity. So if there's a relationship between the school and the private business, then it creates this issue of where's the loyalty? Is the loyalty to the private business, or is it to your duties as a employee or as a board member of the school? And this is even still the case if the official doesn't receive pay or benefits from being on the board of a director for a for-profit corporation. Work includes is defined in the statute as either being a director, officer, partner, trustee, employee, or manager. And with that, public officials can't even influence district decisions if they have an interest in the issue relating to the private business. So this could occur, for example, if a board member has an arrangement for a prospective employment with a business that has dealings that are in front of the board. If there's, I'm going to go to work for you once I retire, and we've already established that, but go ahead and come in front of the board and let's get you a deal. So you got to be careful about that. The other thing is with regard to investments, and public officials can't participate in any decisions that'll have a monetary impact on an investment of $2,000 for the public official. And that's for them, their spouse, a registered domestic partner, or a dependent child. Now, adult children living out of the house, not who aren't dependents, that's different. But if it's somebody who's a dependent, it can be an adult. But if they're, and I saw a statistic that said that there's an increasing number of kids who are living with their parents well into their late 20s and early 30s. If they're living as a dependent in your house, then that would count. And this is also under Government Code 87103. So, an example would be, can a board member make a determination on an issue that would have an impact on a business that the board member owns $5,000 in stock in? Probably not, because not even probably, no, because the amount of the investment is greater than $2,000, so that would prevent it. Now, if it's $200 or $300 of stock, then that's not going to be a problem. But if it's above $2,000 interest, then that would be a problem. Gifts and family finances for 2023, and this gets updated every year, and it's a little bit out of date. But for 2023, a public official cannot participate in a determination that affects someone who's given the public official $590 in a single year. And that's the concern is that the gift givers are trying to curry favor with decision makers or influence the decision making process. And this amount's adjusted every year. And I can try to get that for you before the end of the presentation. Public officials also can't participate in determinations that have a financial impact of more than $250 on their personal finances or on the finances of the spouse, registered domestic partner, or a dependent child. Basically, a public officials are required to disclose any gifts of $50 or more on a statement of interest, and you've probably seen those as Form 700s that you need to fill out every year. And again, you can't get gifts that are more than one source, or more in a year. And those gifts can include things like meals and travel, rebates, discounts, things that if it's not offered to everybody in the ordinary course of business, then and if it's only offered to officials or elected officials, then that's where it can be a problem. And the forms are available at the Fair Political Practices Commission website. And then when you get these forms, they have to be, as public officials, I'm sure you've seen this, but the forms have to be completed when you start office, every year while you're in office, and then when you leave office. And then the gift limit is modified every 2 years, and so it's actually it'd still be the still be the 590 for this year, and then it'll go up next year. All right, so then what happens if you're disqualified? What do you do? If someone is disqualified, in other words, if there's a business that is coming up in front of the board, or in front of the district, or if they've made contributions that have an investment that's higher, then they can't influence the determination. They can't talk about the determination with other district employees or with board members. If it's a board member, usually they have to leave the room if the issue is being heard or voted on. And they also have to state why they're not participating. And if the issue is on the consent calendar, then they typically just need to not vote if it comes up on a consent calendar. And there are some exceptions where the public official can stay in the room to speak as a member of the public, but those are limited. And so this is frequently known as a leave the room requirement, and it's also under the government code under 87-105. When a board member states why they can't participate, the board member has to state the potential conflict of interest with enough detail so the public understands what the conflict of interest is. And again, influencing the decision is a pretty low bar. I mean, it can be something that includes talking with your colleagues or talking with staff about the matter if the official or if the board member has a direct interest. So as an example, you've got a board member who doesn't drink alcohol. The board's considering adding a brewmaster's class to the curriculum. This would likely be at a college or university. Although the teacher won't allow any students to drink beer, the board member's against the class. The board member disqualifies themselves from participating in the determination as to whether to approve it. Are there legal responsibilities? What are the legal responsibilities under the Political Reform Act? And what if the board member decides to stay in the room while the class is being presented and discussed and fakes a whisper? I think how this will look at the community, or bad idea, or how can they make sure nobody drinks beer? And this is an example that's not really applicable to the K-12 districts, but as an example, this would be one where the board member shouldn't make or participate in making any decision because they have an interest in the outcome. And so that would be an example of what would happen. So what are the consequences? So the penalties, if you don't disqualify, if you don't provide the notice requirements, the decision of the board can be nullified. The public official may be prosecuted as a misdemeanor, and if it was knowingly done, and the conviction could cause them to be removed from the board. There may be penalties involved of anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 for each offense, and maybe other penalties. They'll likely have to hire an attorney to defend themselves. And then if there's an action brought by a private individual and they win, they may need to pay that individual's attorney's fees. And of course, along with that goes embarrassment. And these laws are in the 91,000 section of the government code. And there's a possibility to have a criminal felony conviction out of this as well, depending upon the level of knowledge and the level of intent that's discovered, and if they're making money off of this, and if they're dealing in self-dealing and it relates to contracts, they may even have to refund any amounts that have been paid to them under the contract. And examples of this can include if they vote on a decision that approves public funds to the business they own, it's going to likely result in fines. If they if they own an architectural firm and participate in a board decision, it's going to probably result in fines. If they take a construction company paid trip to Hawaii to play golf, then vote on the construction company performing the work, that's probably going to result in fines too. Just examples of how that can come into play. With regard to contracts, board members have to be cautious about in issues involving their contracts. And under the conflict of interest laws, the board members have an interest in a contract that comes before the board. The district can contract out unless there's a legal exception to that. And it might be that there's disqualification may not be sufficient. If someone is an employee of a company, let's say that a board member, an official, is also an employee of a company that the board is considering doing business, the district's considering doing business with, then the contract may still be able to be made. If they disqualify them, they disqualify themselves, they identify themselves as being disqualified, and they don't have any aspects of the decision-making process or the contract-making process. Again, they're not having discussions, they're not promoting it, they're not advocating for it, and they're just an employee. If a public official has a financial interest in, they're an owner in a company, or they're on the board of a company, and there's a contract being made, then the contract's just plain void. And the district wouldn't have to pay the official for the benefits that were provided to the district under the contract. It just can't get entered into. And there is an exception for small school districts. I want to say the number is, I believe it's 95, where if you've got a district with an ADA of under 95, and there's no one else in the area who can perform services, then you can there's an exception for that, but it's pretty limited. And I think there might have been
There is a question in the chat.
Yeah.
It says, what are the legal conflicts of interest when it comes to family members?
So with spouses, it is a direct conflict because under California is a community property state. So my spouse's income is my income, and my income is my spouse's income. So that's considered a direct conflict, and any money going both ways it can be problematic. With other family members, it depends on the relationship, and if they're dependent, then it's problematic. In other words, if they're living in the same house, they're not paying rent. If they're dependent upon one's dependent upon the other, then it creates a financial interest because it puts the personal interest above the interests of the district, and there's financial issues involved. When it comes to other family members, it gets a little trickier. And there's statutory conflicts of interest, and then there's common law conflicts of interest. And the statutory conflicts of interest governing the direct relationship between the economics and the people involved. Common law conflict of interest, and I believe we'll talk about this in a little bit, but common law conflicts of interest are where a person's interests that aren't economic still their interests are not tied economically, but they've got the potential for putting their personal interests above the interests of their duty as a board member. So an example of that was in one of the cases was where a board member had they were voting on whether or not it was a city council, and they're voting on whether to build this building in. Well, one of the board members had a view of the ocean, and if they voted on this project coming in, it would block their view. It wouldn't necessarily lower their property values, but it would block their view, and that was found to be a common law conflict of interest because the board member put their personal interest in having a view over their interest in what's in the best interests of the city. And so it depends upon the relationships. And to avoid the common law conflict of interest, it doesn't make the contract void, but that would be one where you would need to identify, this is the company of my adult daughter, my adult son. I don't have an interest in the company, but it is a relative of mine, and so I'm going to recuse myself from that decision. Does that answer your question? Hopefully. Okay. All right. The contractual conflicts of interest. Basically, anyone in a public interest can't financially be interested in a contract that's made by them in their official capacity or by any board of which they're a member. And it can't be, they can't be a purchasers of sales or vendors that are purchased that's made by them in their official capacity unless they only have a remote interest or the interest is disclosed. Well, they have a remote interest, the interest is disclosed, it's noted on the record to the board, and then the board authorizes, approves, or ratifies the contract in good faith by a vote without counting the vote of the member. And board members are held to even higher standards. It should be noted that board members are held to even higher standards if they're an attorney, if they're an accountant, or if they're other professionals that have a duty of loyalty and care, like financial advisors, accountants, attorneys have a duty of loyalty that's beyond just ordinary standard. They've got a fiduciary duty, which means they have to act absolutely in the best interest of the client or the person they're working for. So, for example, Bridget works for a sign company that has been providing wayfinding services to the district, and then Bridget's elected as a member of the board. What issues might come up? On this, if there's an issue regarding the sign company that comes up, Bridget would have to disqualify herself. And if she's got an interest in the contracts, in other words, she gets direct money out of those contracts, whether through commission or whether through she's an owner, then it's very likely that the company won't be able to enter into any new contractual relationships, because now the board's going to need to vote on a company and on a contract in which she has a direct representation. So she wouldn't be able to participate regardless, and the company may not be able to continue contracting with the district if she's an owner or has a direct compensation out of that. So what are the penalties for a violation under, and this is under the government code 1090. The penalties are under 1098 and 1099. The contract is void. The public official may not be paid for the goods and services that were part of the contract. Depending on the circumstances, depending on the knowledge and whether it's knowing and intentional, they could be guilty of a felony. With that, there could be fines, there could be jail time, and they may lose their office and ability to hold offices in the future. Next is employment restrictions and avoiding a revolving door. Public employees can't use their relationships they gain in public service to get jobs, basically. The public, they can't be paid for representing people from the district for more than a year after they've left the district. And you've got to be cautious about when you return as an employee or an advocate to the place where you were once a public official. And you got to be cautious about making decisions on issues that could affect a potential employer. The law expands these disqualifications in addition to their potentially being, CalSTRS or CalPERS issues if there's a retiree, and they've got their own limitations on this, but this is under the conflicts law. But the law expands the disqualification requirement to circumstances where the prospective employer doesn't have an economic interest now, but they're negotiating to have a future arrangement. So you're a current board member, you're a current officer or official with the district, and you've got a vendor and you're negotiating, hey, I'm going to come work for you. I'm not working for you now. I'm going to come work for you. I'm going to retire in June. I'm going to come work for you. And if we're good on that, then I'll push this contract to go through. while I'm an official, I don't use my official. You can't do that. And the penalties for that also include fines. It could be a misdemeanor. There could be the same attorney's fees that you'd have to pay, along with just public embarrassment. So as an example on this, Austin's term as a board member ends. She takes a job with a class scheduling software company. 6 months later, the district's looking at a new contract with the company. She calls up the board members who are still in office and says, "Hey, this is a great company. Is her communication prohibited?" Yes, because if it would have been more than a year, it would be fine. But because it's less than a year, because she's compensated by the software company and she's made an appearance or communication within the year, she wouldn't be able to do that. So the call would violate the law and would subject her to other penalties. All right. Oh, I think there's another example. There's another example. Alex is a board member, sends a resume to a law firm. The law district's considering using the law firm. Can she participate in the vote to approve the law firm? And then what if they interview her? On this one, Alex can participate in voting to approve the law firm if they've only submitted a resume, but they may want to consider the common law part of it, the public's perception. But once the interview starts, the interview is negotiating with the prospective employer, and Alex wouldn't be able to participate in any decisions relating to the law firm. So if they just submitted a resume, then it shouldn't be a problem. If there's an interview or they start the negotiations on using it, that's when it would become a problem. All right. Any questions on that?
I don't see any questions, Randy, but that was a great presentation. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm especially impressed because the number of participants doesn't look like it declined. So
No, it didn't.
awesome.
Actually, I think it may have gone up a little bit. So, Randy, thank you so much. What a pleasure to have you be a part of this and join us and to share this knowledge with our small school district board members and superintendents. We will be reconvening for session 4 on January 22nd at 5:30 p.m. Randy, you're going to be back with us to continue this 2-hour training in 20-minute segments. And we also will be having capital advisors will be joining us to present the governor's budget. As you know, that's right around the time the governor presents his budget for the next year. And a great opportunity for us to learn about how the state budget works and how it impacts our small and rural school districts across California. So please join us on January 22nd for our 4th session of our governance series. Randy, thank you. Everyone have a fantastic, wonderful evening and happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you have an opportunity to spend some well-deserved time with your families and in your communities over Thanksgiving holidays. So thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Gwen, thank you so much for helping coordinate all of this and helping us get all of this together. Good evening, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Randy.